Okay guys, Coach Jacob here. At the end of the last video I mentioned we'd be talking about the difference between a flat back four and a sweeper stopper and why your coach may choose to play either or. Again, there's no right way to do this. There's just different ways that coaches like to play, different styles. And if you were told to play a certain style, maybe you can now understand why and what the reasons may be. So that being said, let's get right into it. As we discussed in the last video, this is the number system for the back four. 2 is the outside right, 4 and 5 are the two center backs, and 3 is the outside left. Now, this is what we'd consider a flat back four. Now, in the game, it's not necessarily, look, even in my drawing, it's not completely flat, okay? But we just call it a flat back four because you have 4 across the back. You always want to have shape, and we'll be talking about that in another video as well. Now, what are some benefits to the flat back four? Well, what you'll notice is you minimize the gaps, the space between one player and the other in a flat back four, which is a benefit because when other teams are trying to play through balls through your back four, it becomes more difficult if you're organized because you have 4 players across the back, minimizing those gaps. And especially if you guys stay connected across the back, it becomes quite difficult to find those through balls. It also is easier to pick up players as they make runs across because you have someone in each zone to pick up a player. So if you have a player over here that makes a diagonal run across, as they're making that run, you have a new player that is able to pick that person up as they make that run across the field. So that is definitely a benefit of the flat back four. Now here I've drawn a sweeper stopper style. So you see we have the 5 acting as more of a sweeper and a 4 acting more as a stopper. We still have the 2 and the 3 on the outsides on their given side. And what you'll notice about this is the opposite of what the benefit of a flat back four was. You have these large gaps to play through. So when you play in a style like this, you're typically going to have your outside backs pinched in. Now, what's a negative to having your outside backs pinched in? Maybe they're not able to get into the attack as much as they would be able to in a flat back four where you have that cover to get you pushed through. So why do coaches play a sweeper stopper and why do you often see it sometimes when you're first learning to play 11v11? Well, it's simple. If the other team has a quality forward that is very quick and is constantly moving across, it becomes very difficult to communicate their movement, okay? So if you have a player that is very dynamic as a forward and they're constantly making all these runs back and forth into gaps, they're a very dynamic quality forward, it becomes difficult in a flat back four to pick them up, right? Because you have to communicate as they shift from one side of the field to the other. So in a sweeper stopper, what we do is we eliminate that by having the stopper pick that player up. So anywhere this player goes, the stopper moves and knows where they go with them, okay? So that the sweeper, the 5, their only responsibility is to support that stopper, to have balance in that space, okay? So that is a big reason why we'll do that. The other reason is, think about the other team's punting. When they punt, in the sweeper stopper formation, who picks up all the punts? Who goes up for all the headers? The stopper, the 4 does, right? Who picks up that attacking forward? The 4 does. Who picks up the goal kicks or who steps to press? The 4 does. Let's go back to that back flat four. When you have it set up like this, if there's a forward here, who steps to that player? The 4 or the 5? The communication between these two players becomes very important. And when you're first learning 11v11, it's often easier to assign roles and responsibilities to players by just saying, you're the sweeper, you're the stopper. Stopper, you pick up that player, you step to all the goal kicks and the punts, and then the sweeper can fill in behind. So there's pros and cons to both on the defensive side of it, and there's pros and cons to both on the attacking side of it. So let's talk about that real quick. In the attack, if you play a flat back four, okay, you're able to commit numbers forward. So for example, if the ball's moving on the right side of the field and this 2 wants to go into the attack, The 4 can shift, the 5 can shift, and the 3 can shift, and we have quality balance in the back, right? It's easier to do that. And vice versa. If the 2 comes back and the 3 goes, everybody just shifts to the left, okay? So that's it's a positive to playing a flat back 4. If we look at the opposite, all right, with a sweeper stopper, if this player pushes high and this player is already on top of the 5, pushes up, you're stuck with the 2 in the back situation, right? Unless you have quality communication. So a sweeper stopper is a much easier way of dealing with the communication of who's picking up what players, who's covering what spaces, and is easier from the defensive standpoint. Okay, the flat back 4 ideally is better because it allows you to get players up into the attack. So if that's the style of play you want, the flat back 4 definitely will suit that a little bit better. I hope that demonstration helped you guys see the difference between the flat back 4 and the sweeper stopper, and maybe why a coach would choose to play one over the other. As always, every formation, every organization, there's no wrong way to set up or play soccer. Every coach is going to have a different style, a different approach, a different setup. And hopefully that these types of scenarios that we've drawn up give you a reason into why they may do that and why it may be easier for you to play a sweeper stopper and or a flat back 4. What you'll notice in a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is what becomes the most important piece to this puzzle. Communication, right? Organization, so that we're communicating where runners are, where players are, where you need to be, who needs to be picked up. And then that solves most of our problems, right? If we are communicating properly, it's easier to see it. So at the end of the day, there's no wrong way to set up. There's no wrong formation. Oftentimes as coaches, we look at the group of players we have and we have to find how can we best exploit the players that we have. Maybe that means playing a 3-back. Maybe that means playing a flat back 4, sweeper stopper, whatever it may be. But that is the difference between a sweeper stopper and flat back 4. I think in the next video, we're going to talk about the different segments of the game, the different areas of the field, and discuss on how we want to act or deal with those situations. So stay tuned for that.